Hello, ma'am. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the strategy of international business. My name is Zahrah Kania, and there's also Glenn and Kezia in our group. For starters, I'm going to explain the learning objective 1, strategy and the firm. Strategy. When we talk about strategy, we should focus on the firm itself and the action managers take to compete more effectively in international markets. A firm strategy can be defined as the action that managers take to attain the goals of the firm. Profitability is the rate of return the firm makes on its invested capital, while profit growth is the percentage increase in net profits over time. Next. Here we can see the determinants of enterprise value. Shareholders expect high profitability and high profit growth. So to achieve those goals, managers can add value, lower costs, sell more in existing markets, and expand internationally. Next, value creation. Firm can achieve higher profitability and higher profit growth rates through value creation. The more customer value a product, the more they'll be willing to pay for it. So we can say that the value created by a firm is measured by the difference between what it can charge for the product given the competitive environment and the cost of producing the product. How can a firm increase profits? Firms can increase their profits by adding value to a product so that customers are willing to pay more for it, or by lowering their costs. The strategy used by firms are the differentiation strategy, where the focus is on increasing the attractiveness of the product, and through a low-cost strategy, where the focus is on lowering costs. Next. Here in this figure, we can see an illustration of value creation. Next. For a firm to maximize its profitability, it has to pick a viable point on the efficiency frontier where there is enough demand. Then the firm has to configure its internal operation to support that position, and it has to put the right type of organizational structure in place to implement the strategy. Next. In this figure, we can see the strategic choice in international hotel industry. In other words, because the Four Seasons hotel chain has positioned itself as luxury chain, its costs are higher than a Marriott, which is positioned as a middle-level hotel. So the Four Seasons hotel must be able to charge a higher price, and customer must see the added value they're getting in order to justify the price. Next. The firm as a value chain. We can think of a firm as a value chain composed of distinct value creation activities like production, marketing, materials management, R&D, human resource, and so on. Each of these activities has to be managed efficiently. We can categorize these activities as primary activities and support activities. Primary activities are those that involve creating the product, marketing, and delivering it to the buyers, and providing supports and after-sale service to customers. Usually, we divide primary activities into 4 functions: R&D, production, marketing, and sales, and customer service. While support activities are just what you think, activities that allow the primary activities to occur. They include things like information system that manage inventory or track sales, logistic, and human resource. We might think they not as important as primary activities, but in fact, they're just as important. Next. Here we can see the different parts of the value chain.
Okay, so let's continue to learning objective 2, global expansion, profitability, and profit growth. Okay, so first, expanding the market, leveraging products and competencies. Firms that operate internationally are able to first expand the market for their domestic product offerings by selling price those products in international markets. So it's just a basic things that you sell your products in international markets. Number two, realize location economies by dispersing individual value creation activities to those locations around the globe where they can be performed most efficiently and effectively. So in short, you must find the best location, the most strategic location to sell your goods or even manufacture and produce your goods for international. Number three, realize greater cost economies from experience effects by serving an expanded global market from a central location, thereby reducing the cost of value creation. Number four, earn a greater return by leveraging any valuable skills developed in foreign operations and transferring them to other entities within the firm's global network of operations. So the key here for number four is to maximize your skills that has been developed in foreign operations before. Okay, next, location economies. So first one, we will discuss about location economies first. So core competence here, the term core competence refers to skills within the firm that competitors cannot easily match or imitate. These skills may exist in any of the firm's value creation activities productions, such as marketing, R&D, HR, logistics, GM, and etc. Such skills are typically expressed in product offerings that other firms find difficult to match or imitate. So the key is the thing that you can do is difficult to match or imitate by other company or our competitor, such as I give you an example from book as Toyota. Toyota has a core competence in the production of cars. They are able to produce high quality, well-designed cars at a lower delivered cost than any other firm in the world, confirmed by the book. The competencies that enable Toyota to do this seem to reside primarily in the firm's production and logistics functions. And the key is Toyota have Toyota has a capability to reduce their logistics costs. Okay, and also we know that McDonald's has a core competence in managing fast food operations. McDonald's seems to be one of the most skilled firms in the world for this fast food industry. Maybe his competitor is KFC. We also know Starbucks for its perfect SOP, standard operation in every their brands around the world, their brands around the world. And also now we have talked about location economics. Now we want to talk about the core competencies again. So if you guys have read a book that's it was written about Clear Vision. Clear Vision is an US manufacturer and distributor of eyewear. And from that, I'll give you a summary that to deal with a threat from foreign competition, what Clear Vision did is was adopted a strategy intended to lower its cost structure. So cost structure here, we mention it with C, shifting its production from high cost location. So we talk about location, high cost location, which is United States, and now to a low cost location, first Hong Kong, and then move out to China, more cheaper, more low cost. Then Clear Vision adopts a strategy intended to increase the perceived value of its products. We can call it as fee, increase the fee value. Clear Vision strategies include some actions intended to reduce its cost of creating value, and other actions intended to add perceived value to its product through differentiation. Okay, we talk about the core competence and also location of economies. And then we're going to talk about the global web. So we need to creating a global web. In theory, a firm that realizes location economies by dispersing each of its value creation activities to its optimal location should have a competitive advantage compared to a firm that bases all of its value creation activities at a single location. So we have a different location and compared to at a single location for a company to basis all of its value in a single location. It should be able to be better differentiate its product offering, thereby raising perceived value that we mentioned before with fee, and lower its cost structure C than its single location competitor. Again, uh, the key here is maximize the perceived value and minimize the cost of creation. And then we also must be aware of some caveats or maybe some warnings here, caveats. Even if a country looks very attractive as a production location when measured against all the standard criteria, this is very good. Maybe we think it's very good. If its government is unstable or totalitarian, the firm might be advised not to base production there. So we refer to the chapter that we learned before in chapter 2, which was about political risk. So now we're talking about the experience effect. So first thing effect is about learning effects. Refer to cost savings that come from learning by doing. Labor, for example, learns by repetition how to carry out a task. Learning effects tend to be more significant when a technologically complex task is repeated because there is more that can be learned about the task. However, no matter how complex the task, learning effects typically disappear after a while. It has been suggested that they are important only during the first moment or maybe at the startup period of a new process, and that they will be reduced after 2 or 3 years. Any decline in the experience curve after such a point is due to economies of scale. So now we're talking about economies of scale that refer to the reductions in unit costs achieved by producing a large volume of a product. Attaining economies of scale lowers a firm's unit cost and increases its profitability. Economies of scale have a number of sources. One is the ability to spread fixed costs over a large volume. And then moving down the experience curve also allows a firm to reduce its cost of creating value. Firm A, for example, in the figure, you can see because it is farther down the experience curve, has a clear cost advantage over firm B. Once a firm has established at a low cost position, such as firm A here, it can act as a barrier to new competition. Specifically, an established firm that is well down the experience curve, such as firm A in figure, can take price, so that is still making a profit while new entrants, for example B here, which are further up the curve, are suffering losses. This is what is called as strategic significance. And then we move on for us is leveraging the skills in subsidiaries. So leveraging the skills created within these subsidiaries and applying them to other operations within the firm's global network may have a possible to create a value. For example, here we have a picture of McDonald's. McDonald's increasingly is finding that its foreign franchises are a source of valuable new ideas, new innovation. If you take a look on our book, it tells us about how McDonald's in France adopt building design and the interior and also the rocks for its store. Now here in Indonesia, for McDonald's, we have special menus. As you can see, what is the differentiation between the Western and our country McDonald's menu. It is about the rice, because rice is as our can say a staple food, right? In Indonesia for rice, so it's very unique and it can create a value, perceive a value, and a source of a new ideas and innovation. That's the only one country that serve rice menus is only in Indonesia. That is for learning objective number 2. Now let's we move on to learning objective 3.
So now I'm going to explain about the cost pressures and pressures for local responsiveness. So firms that compete in the global marketplace typically face two types of competitive pressure. The first one is pressures for cost reductions. So in a competitive global market, international businesses often face pressures for cost reductions. A firm might outsource certain functions to low-cost foreign suppliers to reduce cost. An example for this would be Walmart. Walmart has pushed its suppliers to reduce prices, and it then became a major cause for North American manufacturers to shift their production to China because, well, China has lower and cheaper production cost. Now, pressures for cost reduction can be particularly intense in industries that serve universal needs. What is universal needs? Universal needs basically they exist when the tastes and preferences of consumers in different nations are similar, if not identical. Examples of this would be commodity products such as petroleum, steel, sugar, and industrial consumer products such as handheld calculators, personal computers, and etc. Besides the commodity products and industrial and consumer products that I have mentioned before, um, the pressure for cost reductions is also awfully intense in industries where major competitors are based in low cost locations because consumers in the low cost locations are more powerful and they can easily switch goods and find the lowest cost. So this will increase the competition and it makes the pressures for cost reductions more intense. Now, the second one is pressures for local responsiveness. The first pressure is from the differences in customer tastes and differences. While strong pressures for local responsiveness emerge when customer tastes and preferences differ significantly between countries. This happens because every country has their own embedded history or cultural reasons. For history in Indonesia and the US is of course very different. The Indonesia just got our independence in 1945, whereas US has long gone um, have their own independence. And um, because we know that every country has their own history and cultural reasons, therefore, firms have to customize their products to appeal and tailor their products to the tastes and preferences of local customers. So this would create, of course, a pressure for the firm to delegate production and marketing responsibilities better because of these differences. An example for this difference in customer tastes and preferences would be one of them would be in the cell phone business. So in 2007, as we all know, it's the boom of technology, the boom of cell phone. small phone. So Americans thought of cell phones primarily as devices for talking, but not as much as to browse the web. Whereas in Asia and Europe, the web browsing function is more widely accepted, widely embraced. Why does this happen? Well, this happens because of the activity of the people, the cultural reasons. People in Europe and Asia often spend more time commuting on trains, on public transportations, while Americans tend to spend more time commuting on their cars. So their hands are always occupied in their cars. They're using their hands. So that's why they don't really have much time to browse the web. So they think that cell phone is only used to primarily for speaking devices, and not as much for doing other things. That's so that therefore manufacturers have to tailor in each country what's best for each country. The second difference is differences in infrastructure and traditional practices. So pressures for local responsiveness arise from differences in infrastructure or traditional practices among countries, and then this would create a need to customize products accordingly. And fulfilling this require the delegation of manufacturing and production work functions to foreign subsidiaries. So, for example, in North America, consumer electrical systems are based on 110 volts, whereas in some European countries it's based on 240 volts, 240 volt, and that's set as their standard. So of course, domestic electrical appliances have to be customized for this difference in infrastructure, right? And for the traditional practices, and this is also often vary across nations. For example, in Britain, people drive on the left-hand side of the road, creating a demand for the right-hand drive cars. Whereas in France and basically the rest of the Europe, people drive on the right-hand side of the road and therefore want a left-hand drive cars. So obviously, automobiles manufacturers have to customize and accommodate these differences in traditional practice. And then we're moving on to the third pressure in local responsiveness. The third one is differences in distribution channels. So a firm's marketing strategies have to be responsible to differences in distribution channels among countries. What does this mean? Well, I'm going to give you an example. For example, in the pharmaceutical industry, the Japanese distribution system is radically different from the US system. So this distribution channels is talking about how the products is presented. So the Japanese doctors will not accept or respond favorably to US style high pressure sales force because well they think the hard selling would not do them as good. So the pharmaceutical companies have to adopt different marketing strategy by doing soft selling to the Japanese doctors. And last but not least is the host government demands. Basically, economic and political demands imposed by host country governments may require local responsiveness. Threats like protectionism, economic nationalism, and local content rules dictate that international businesses manufacture locally. And after we knew these pressures from cost reductions and pressures for local responsiveness, then the question now is how do we choose the perfect strategy for the combination of both? Well, there are four basic strategies. The first one is global standardization strategy. It's when the pressure for cost reduction is high, but the pressure for local responsiveness is low. And we have the international strategy, where the pressure for cost reduction and pressure for local responsiveness is both low. And this international strategy is um, usually rarely happen. It's only happens in a fortunate situation. And for the transnational strategy, we can use transnational strategy when the pressure for local responsiveness is high and the pressure for the cost reduction is also high. And the localization strategy, we can use it if the pressure for cost reduction is low, but the pressure for the local responsiveness is high. So we're going to dive deep into one by one strategy. So the first one is global standardization strategy. So firms that pursue a global standardization strategy focus on increasing profitability and profit growth by reaping the cost reductions that come from economies of scale, learning effects, and location economies. So their strategic goal is to pursue a local strategy on a global scale. They try not to customize their product offering and marketing strategy to local conditions. Instead, they prefer to market a standardized product worldwide so they can reap the maximum benefits from economies of scale and learning effects. This strategy makes more sense when, as I mentioned before, there are strong pressures for cost reductions and demands for local responsiveness are minimal. And these conditions would prevail in many industrial goods industries whose products often serve as universal needs, like sugar, petroleum, and etc. Because they have set a standard for their products and the price so that they can reap um, the maximum benefits of it. They don't have to tailor each of the products because when you're tailoring a product, it will increase your cost. Next one is the localization strategy. Localization strategy focuses on increasing profitability by customizing the firm's goods or services so that they provide a good match to tastes and preferences in different national markets. By customizing the product offering to local demands, the firm increases the value of the product in the local market. But on the downside, the local customization supports higher pricing. Thus, pursuing a localization strategy will still need to be as efficient as possible. Localization strategy is um, different from global standardization strategy. When global standardization strategy, they set a standard. Localization, they focus on tailoring to each country. And localization is most, as I mentioned before again, it's most appropriate when there are substantial differences across nations with regard to consumer tastes and preferences, and where cost pressures are not too intense, because the value added to the products would increase, thus this would make products high in demand, but there would also must be little cost restraints from the customization. The next strategy is transnational strategy. Firms that pursue a transnational strategy are trying to simultaneously achieve low costs through location economies, economies of scale, and learning effects. They try to differentiate their product offering across geographic markets to account for local differences and foster multi-directional flow of skills between different subsidiaries in a firm's global network of operations. Well, this sure sounds attractive in theory, right? You have different geographic markets and you can have um, global network of operation. But in reality, the transnational strategy is very complex and a challenging task. Differentiating the product to respond to local demands in different geographic markets would raise costs because you're tailoring to each nation, but which also runs counter with the goal of reducing costs. So this is very complex and challenging and needs a lot of consideration. The last one would be international strategy. So international strategy is taking products first produced for their domestic market and selling them internationally with only minimal customization. The distinguishing feature of many such firms is that they are selling a product that serves universal needs, but they do not face significant competitors. And this can only work when firms at a place where they are in fortunate position of being confronted with local pressures and low pressures for local responsiveness. So those are the four strategies. And then we're going to talk about the evolution of strategy, where these strategies may shift over time. So the Achilles heel of the international strategy is that over time, competitors inevitably emerge, and if managers do not take proactive steps to reduce their firm's cost structure, it will be rapidly outflanked by efficient global competitors. So international strategy may not be viable in the long term, and to survive, then firms need to shift towards a global strategy, a global standardization strategy, or transnational strategy in advance of competitors. The same can be said about localization. Localization may give firm a competitive edge, but if it is simultaneously facing aggressive competitors, the company will also have to reduce its cost structure, and the only way to do that is they have to shift towards a transnational strategy. So that's all the presentation from our group. Thank you for listening. Now we're moving on to the case study.
Next, we'll talk about this week's case study. The title is Walmart's Global Expansion. Next. The first question is, how does expanding internationally benefits Walmart? Our answer is Walmart's selling point is its lower price. They gain market share and maintain growth rates by selling low-cost items and food. Global expansion allows business to take advantage of location economies to ensure quality, use economics of scale to reduce production cost per unit, and take advantage of learning effects. Expansion abroad, particularly for Walmart, strengthens and secure their core competency, selling everyday life's good at lower price. Next. For the second question, how does expanding international benefits Walmart? And here's our question, our answer. The strategy that succeeds in the US has no guarantee of success in other countries. Different countries have different consumer preferences and habits. Furthermore, Walmarts may encounter strong competition from well-established retailers who have a deeper understanding of local customers' wants and needs. A strict government that protects the local economy or an unstable government or economy could be another threat. Walmart could still get a crucial understanding of the local market and its consumer through good market research or cooperation of local retailer companies. Okay, Clara.
Okay, now let we discuss number 3. Why do you think that Walmart first entered Mexico via a joint venture? Why did it purchase its Mexican joint venture in 1998? So Walmart in 1991 penetrated the market in Mexico with a joint venture. It's called Chifra, the biggest retailer shop in Mexico. So the Walmart biggest challenge in expanding their business in Mexico is the natural habit of Mexican shoppers. So we need a prologue that American shoppers tend to buy big purchase like in a month. Maybe they go to grocery shopping for once in a 3 weeks or maybe once in a month. But it's different with Mexican shoppers' natural habit. They actually go with smaller bag, and they go to a grocery shop maybe like once in a week or maybe twice in a week. So they go to a grocery shop more often than Americans do. Walmart needs to adapt to local market preferences. That is why they need a mentor. Mentor here is Chifra that has been established before it. By teaming up with the country's largest retailer, the company was able to benefit from Chifra's knowledge of the local marketplace. Yes, it sounds very cruel to say take benefit, right? To take knowledge from Chifras, but that's what business do, right? And Walmart didn't want to risk starting on its own in a foreign market and add a failure mark in their portfolio. So instead of do from bottom, why are we not team up with the biggest one, big one. So after Walmart dominate the market, not enough. Not only dominate the market, but they won. They won it entirely. So they bought the market to own it entirely, fully owned by Walmart in 1998. That's such a slow long-term vision strategy by Walmart from 1991 to 1998, with 7 years. It's actually fast at the time comparing to competition nowadays. But yes, you can say not slow, maybe an intermediate long-term vision strategy by Walmart. So that's for number three. Let's move on to number four.
Number 4, what strategy is Walmart pursuing? A global strategy, localization strategy, international strategy, or transnational strategy? Does this strategic choice make sense, and why? So, what our group thinks is that from the case given, Walmart is pursuing localization strategy because as they expand to countries outside the US to increase their profitability, they need to customize its goods and services to match the tastes and preferences of the targeted country. As mentioned in the case study, Walmart first branched out to Mexico and they had a trouble before it can expand to Canada and other countries because when in Mexico they don't really listen to what the local wants, so they had problems. And after they fix that, they are able to expand to much greater country and has a lot of countries that has Walmart in it. So this strategy makes a total sense because every country has its own characteristic and different local preferences. So in order to excel in doing this internationally, we need to adapt with their tastes and preferences so we can formulate which marketing and distribution strategies suits the local preferences best, as what Walmart did. So that's all from us. Thank you for listening and have a great day.